Hello and welcome. As always, we'll give it just a few moments for folks who are online to join in, and then we'll get started. Thank you. This meeting of the South Louis School Board is now in session, called to order. We will begin this. We are coming from a retreat at the South Campus that was in person only. We are moving directly into our special business meeting, which will have be very short, and then we'll move into our usual workshop format. So first, can I turn to Director Jackson for the land acknowledgement?
We gather on the ancestral lands of the Snohomish people, the speakers of the Lushootseed family of languages, the people today affiliated with the Tulalip tribes. These are the lands of Stillaguamish, Suquamish. These are the lands of the Lower Skagit people. I want to actually take a moment to reflect on not just sharing the land acknowledgement, but sharing what I've been learning about the land acknowledgement, including that some of these things that I speak as fact are nuanced. And who are the tribes of this place? That is nuanced. I've been told that this South Whidbey is Snohomish territory. I've also been told that because of the way some tribal members became part of the Tulalip tribes, that story is complex. I've also been told that the word Chakolchi is not a name that was used for this place. I believed that it was, and I think I was one of the first people in our community to put that in writing in a land acknowledgement for another organization over a decade ago. And so I just want to point to this as an opportunity for continual ongoing learning about being in integrity with ourselves and our relationships with each other and with our place. And so I want to speak these words with some humility that what we share as fact may or may not hold up to scrutiny, but what we share as a relationship generally does. And so I want to speak to the integrity of the relationship that Indigenous people have had with the lands, with the waters, with the beings, with the continuity of care that has been shown for this place and all relations for uncountable generations past, present, and future. And when we, as a district, acknowledge the first people of this place, we hope that that intention to care for our relationships shines through. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jackson. Of note, this first section is a business meeting. This is the board doing its business in public. We will then move on to the workshop portion of the evening, where we invite community members who are present or attending virtually to join in the conversations on the topics on the agenda when they are being discussed. We ask that the first time you speak, you note your name and general location, and then we will welcome your comments on the items on the agenda. If you are attending virtually and you would like to make a comment, please quickly just note your name and location in the Q&A function and hit enter. That way we know that there is a comment and we can wait while you type up the rest of it. Please keep in mind that we do have professional communication policy at this district. Is policy 0002, which focuses on maintaining the dignity of both the speaker and the listeners. And if you are interested in more information on that, you may check on our policy page. The only item of new business in our business meeting is Memorandum 242602, approval of sale of surplus metal. Dr. Clifford, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Fields and Mr. Patton, but this is related to the construction, and we need to clear out the metals room so that they can start doing their work on it. And we have engaged with our current CTE staff to make sure that internally, if there's anything that we want to maintain, we maintain that. But Mr. Fields will share the surplus policy and activities, and then Mr. Patton can share how he's engaged with the staff.
Yeah, so before we can dispose of district property, we have to have it approved by the board. Given the dollar amount, there's a lot of old equipment in the old CTE metal shop area that hasn't been utilized in several years. I'll let Mr. Patton speak to the program itself, but this is a list of items that we're looking to surplus. So we'll advertise it for 30 days to see if there's any other schools or public entities that are interested. If not, we're planning on grouping the items into lots and doing a public auction online. To get rid of as much of it as we can before we have to go the route of scrapping the items. So that's what this is about. I can speak to some of the items on the list, some of the descriptions. I'm not a metal worker, so I don't know what it all is, but that's where we're at with that.
So I have notified our CTE teachers have known this for a while, that's coming down the road, and not a lot of equipment can be utilized by our current CTE classes. We are making sure, though, there are some robotics equipment that we use in our engineering class that we need to make sure that we separate and hide in a safe spot.
Thank you. The only question that I had was about current use and planned usage, and you already addressed that, so thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, or debate or discussion from the board?
What opportunities do high school students have to enrich their education through CTE, both here and at Snow Isle?
There's a really long answer. I'll give you a brief answer. Right now, you really have to go back. I've been here a while. When we had 750 students instead of 400, we had a pretty robust CTE program, including automotive class. We also had metals, and as we got smaller, we had to combine those classes. So how we approach our program currently is really a lot of survey classes, get students interested in certain areas, like our shop program is thriving right now. And again, it's hooking some of those students for future careers. And our Snow Isle, and I think most of you have visited Snow Isle, is pretty amazing. We're talking up-to-date technology and things like that we don't see currently in our old metal shop. But I think there'll still be some interest in the surplus. But again, it's hooking kids and connecting them with programs at Snow Isle. And again, as you all know, we probably have anywhere from 25 to 30 students that attend every day in different programs.
Anything else? Okay. Could we get our student advisory vote on Memorandum 252602?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 252602, approval of sale of surplus metal, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum passes. We will now leave our special business meeting and transition to workshop format. This will be policy review. We have 6 policies on the board for tonight. Of note, several of these policies, the 3rd through 6th, are old policies that were last looked at in the early 2000s, 04 through 07, I believe. And so this is part of a process to look at some of the oldest touched policies in our district and just see if they're actually A, applicable anymore, B, doing what we want them to, and only if they are not doing what we want them to and they are applicable, then we actually start touching them and adjusting them and changing them. But the idea is if they're not applicable anymore, we'll remove them. If they're working just fine as they are, we'll put a note on there that says we reviewed it in 2025, and then at least a future board will know that it hasn't been since 2004. But the first two are new policies from WASDA model policies, and I will turn this over. Is this something that you want to lead, or Dr. Clifford?
I think since you pulled the policies, you and Dr. Clifford should lead.
Absolutely. So I'll turn to Dr. Clifford for 1815, ethical conduct for school directors.
Okay, I needed to pull it up. This is a WASDA model policy, and it's been approved by WASDA. We haven't changed we changed it, but it is a policy that most that districts are now adopting if they have not already adopted it. And so we're just making sure that we're have all the policies that we should be having in place. Are there any questions?
This is just looking at, this is information that has been our standard to follow, but this is looking at putting it into policy.
A lot of this looks familiar when you take WASDA training.
Mhm.
And so I think it's kind of falls under the category of it's like things we're doing anyway. And so we might as well enshrine it into policy so that we and future iterations of the board will continue to hold ourselves accountable to these standards.
That was my read on it as well. It's also part of the binder that we, or associated very closely with the binder of information on being a school director that we get when we are brought into the district. Any other comments or questions? Let's get you, Mike.
So when did you say the last time you reviewed this policy?
This is a new policy.
This is a new policy.
Yes. This is newly passed down from WASDA as recommended policy.
I was going to say, I don't ever, oh, sorry, Gwendy from Freeland. I don't ever recall seeing this. I think this is great. Can you roll the slide down a little bit just so I can see the whole failure to adhere to the core ethical principles? Thank you. Result in further consequences, individual civil penalties.
And 1825 is next on our list.
Okay, so how do you guys plan on benchmarking this in the sense of these are elements that you're held to? I mean, what's that going to look like in your eyes?
Well, I would hope that we would be holding each other accountable for this, and through, as this is mentioned, if there's a failure to adhere to these core principles, then this rest of the school board or the majority of the school board could vote to censure in keeping with the next policy.
It's encaptured in a different policy that we have under, I think it's school board director conduct or something. I can't remember the exact title, but we have something similar in a different policy. And so I think looking at the two, this one's more comprehensive. So if we're moving forward with one, I would move forward with this one.
Yeah, these are big fancy words. You have objectivity, selfishness, stewardship, transparency, and integrity.
Yep.
I'm excited about this. Thank you.
I'm encouraged and absolutely not surprised that our norms that we spoke of today in the retreat address all of these things in our daily practice in the community.
Any other comments or questions on this? Anything that we would like to change? I don't, there's no need for modify as accurate for our district.
Yeah, I'm just looking for which policy we would want to bring forward to see if it's encaptured in this one. I think it's and it might not be one that we would want to necessarily just like pull out, but what it looks like. But I think it's the key functions of the board to pull. And then I know there's one that's more specific.
Some of this is addressed in.
Oh, it's meeting conduct.
Yeah, I was going to say
1400.
1400.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was collected in a few scattered places. This really just brings it all together into one place, is my understanding.
I do have a follow-up question
Mhm.
on that last paragraph. Failure to adhere to these core ethical principles or failure to comply with other policies adopted by the board or the law may result in the school board taking formal censure of the offending school director. What would that look like?
We're going
Formal.
we're going to review that in the next policy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, 1825 is the next policy. Anything else?
I just want to, I share the perspective that this is already kind of the training we receive when we become school directors. It's already the practice that we have adopted, and to formally enshrine it in policy sounds wise.
Excellent. We will then move from 1815 to 1825. And that is addressing school director violations, which basically just runs through the chain of consequences if the board as a whole, which means the majority of the board, believes that a director is not fulfilling the ethical standards in 1815. And it just, since it's a little small up there, it's conversation in a private setting between the offending school director and the board chair or other individual identified by the board. Number 2 is discussion in a properly convened executive session between the offending school director and the full board. Number 3 is possible removal of the offending school director from any leadership or committee positions to which they have been appointed or elected by the board. And then 4 is censure of the offending school director by adopting a resolution in an open meeting as a means of separating the board's focus and intent from those of the offending school director.
And this is our current practice.
Yes.
And we've never moved past step 2 in the 8 years I've been on there, but that's the process as I understood it. So this is just codifying what we already do.
Yep, and there is no, there's nothing in here for removing a school director because that is not the school board's purview, that is the voters' purview. The voters' purview. Only the voters can remove a school director.
What would it look like practically for an individual school director to be identified? I'm looking at number 1 for this conversation, this one-on-one conversation. What would it look like for another individual to be identified by the board?
In my opinion, that would be, for instance, me saying, I'm not comfortable with this subject matter as board chair. I would like to suggest that Marnie, Director Jackson, handle this one. And then Director Jackson would talk to the offending school director.
That's what I thought. And in which case I would just add the word chair after board, because it makes it sound like the entire board would somehow collectively identify this representative. And that just, it seems kind of awkward considering one of the members of the board is potentially having harmed another member of the board.
And because the board can't make a decision like that except in public, and that would remove the privacy of this. I think that's
Yes, another good point.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. That so then that does slightly change the meaning of what is here from a collective decision on who has that conversation to a singular decision on who has that conversation, and that's something we need to decide if we're comfortable with.
I think the only way for this to be a conversation in private, without sort of airing the internal business to the whole community, would be for a single board member to pull aside the offending board member for this initial conversation. I think that making it into a full board decision about who should have that conversation sort of escalates and skips steps in this action sequencing.
And I'd like to add that it, as this reads, it is intended. I appreciate the conversation and the thoughtful exploration of that, and it is intended to be in that small, very specific board chair or board chair identified. So I think we should add that. And then number 2 actually describes full board. So it does distinguish between the two.
I do have one follow-up question. So let's say a community member comes to the board and says, I believe one of the board members has violated one of these items. Then what does that look like?
Well, I'm happy to give my perspective on that, but please.
Yeah, my sense is it would be subject to the discernment and judgment of the person to whom this concern is brought. I would say that should such a concern be brought to me, I would want to know if it was substantiated, if it either could be substantiated through some sort of objective lens, or if it matched my own experience. And should it be substantiated or match my own experience, then I would be likely to elevate it to this.
I guess in simpler terms, if a community member came to a meeting and said, in my opinion, this person has violated this, what would that conversation look like and how would one proceed?
So the only place that they could do that at a board meeting would be a public comment at a business meeting. So
Okay.
there would be no conversation at that time.
Okay.
Because it would be during public comment, so the board would be receiving it. And I would expect that the board chair and perhaps one other board member would talk about it and decide if they were going to go into this protocol. And it can't be more than one other board member, because then that would violate the Open Public Meetings Act. And then they would go to step 1 if they thought it was necessary.
So first, a community member needs to come to a board meeting during public comment.
No, they could address another board member individually via email, via in-person conversation, phone call, whatever, however they want to bring that information to a board member.
Because typically it takes 2 board members to bring something up. So you're saying they only need to go to 1 board member?
Yeah, do you mind if okay, so this is just like if there was a complaint process in a school setting where you would come to an administrator, so you come to the board chair, you communicate that there is a concern, and there you are, the community member would say that there is a concerned and alleged violation based on this policy, describing it. It's not coming to the board, so it's not following board meeting protocol.
Gotcha.
We're following this. And so then, assuming that the board chair would probably be the main point of contact, that conversation would be had, probably some additional information gathering to clarify what it is that is being alleged was violated. And then after review of that, there would be a follow-up conversation with the individual and to just share that there was the alleged concern. And then depending on if there was an actual violation or not would depend on how we would move forward with next steps. And I do want to share that anytime we're adopting a new policy that has not been enacted until that time of which it was adopted, that is when that policy starts. So this is, if there are complaints that happen before this policy, board members cannot be upheld to the components of this policy if there's a complaint from something from before this policy was enacted.
So it would just fall back on the previous policy.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
I have a suggestion, and I'm not really sure how, but the word offending, I feel like it's somewhat in conflict with restorative justice, restorative practices, and I don't know what to replace it with. But I feel like it's not the right word for this situation where a colleague has potentially caused harm, and especially in step 1, where it's the beginning of what is potentially, but hopefully not, continued harm. I wouldn't want someone to feel like they are offending. It feels like a I don't like a criminal type of word.
I think Director Greenhair, if we read the paragraph above, it says, therefore, in the event of a board member's willful and or continuing violation of a law, policy, or judgment, the board will address the issue through the following process. So this isn't necessarily a difference in opinion or, you know, a comment that caused harm. This is willful and continuing violation of law, policy, or judgment.
That's a helpful distinction. If you were looking for a word that isn't offending, I might suggest the school director in question. But I also feel like if they've gotten to the point where they are willfully and continuingly violating law, policy, or judgment, that seems offensive. This also, your clarification, Director Downs, also helps me recognize that one of the checkpoints on this hypothetical scenario of a community complaint would be not just that there's a community member with a grievance against a board member, but that there is a demonstrable pattern of willful and or continuing violation
Of law, policy, or judgment. Like this isn't just, there's a school board member that I disagree with who said such and such or voiced X, Y, and Z opinion in a meeting or in a different space. This would be, I read it as more of an internal process to help support districts that have some very challenging board dynamics at this point in time.
That is a correct interpretation of the intent behind this.
So the way I view that one, board recognized failure to deal with the deliberate action or continuing violation, multiple. So it's referring to a singular or plural versions, not just continued, right? That, or they wouldn't have the or. Right.
It doesn't have to be continued as long as it's deliberate. Yeah.
So one offense versus multiple offense, either way, it's a discussion.
Well, and I think that also gives leeway for one deliberate bad offense versus a pattern of continuing offense despite conversations.
I see it as one or many.
So what I think that if there was any deliberate violation of a law or a board policy, we're going to follow up with that.
Perfect.
And I think that that is a collective, everybody's held to that standard. And so I think that the clarification or the explanation is that it's not just simply a disagreement, but that it's a deliberate violation of law or board policy.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this? So the only change we're looking at is to add chair to the end of point 1.
May I ask if the comfort has increased with the word offending?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we just also change the space in front of school board to South Whitby School Board?
Yes. Yeah. Ms. Macaro is fantastic at catching those things as they go through. All right. We will, I'm going to check Zoom just to make sure there isn't any questions or comments there. There are not. So we will go on to, now we are beginning our entry into some of the older school board policies that have not been touched in some time. And we are going first to policy 1620, school board operating protocol. This, we had some discussions about this, and I don't remember where we ended on the necessity of bringing this into policy because it is in.
This exact information is in our policy.
Yes.
So this was just verifying that, and in fact, this actually just realizes what we did today in our retreat. But this is, we brought this in to verify and validate that we do have it in, and it is in our policy. And it does verify what we did in our retreat today. So,
So it's a touch point just to make sure that we do indeed have this, and it is still suitable. And there's nothing we need to intentionally change.
So on the question of a policy that we've reviewed but not changed, normally we would have the adoption date and then the revision date. Do we have the adoption date and then the review date?
Yes.
Great.
I'll just note that the procedure associated with this policy, all it has is a link, but it's a link to a really great webpage about the board superintendent relationship that goes really in depth and is extremely educational and helpful for the public and for anyone interested in the two roles.
That's why we looked at it and saw we didn't need to change it, because it has all that information already. Okay. Next on the line is 2178, traffic safety education. This is a policy that was last looked at this looks like 2011. I thought it was earlier than that, but yeah.
Yeah. So, so we, as Director Wilford said, this was older, and so we wanted to bring it back and review it. We've identified that this is not currently a class or program within the district right now, and so we actually don't know that we need to continue having this policy. It is discretionary, so it's not a required policy from WASDA, and so I'm bringing that to the board so that we can have that conversation.
And the district does not currently have a traffic safety class. And Mr. Patton, this is a surprise question, so I apologize for it. Approximately how long have we not had it?
2019.
Okay.
We had some retired teachers currently that taught it.
Mhm.
And did Coach Lear teach you how to drive?
My dad did actually,
Okay.
but officially, yes.
I think Coach Lear probably taught half the island, South End, how to drive.
Mr. Wells taught me. My question about retiring this policy, if it's not needed, would be, would we wish we had it if enrollment grew to the level where we wanted to offer this service in-house again? And in that case, might we just want to change language to the district may provide?
I just wanted to add to that. Currently, a majority of our students go to a company, I can't remember the name, up in Oak Harbor. And I have been in discussion about them actually coming down and using our facility, possibly during the summer. So that is possible. But again, it would be run through the company, and they still could use our facilities like a classroom.
Well, in this,
Oh, so it would go through the process of like renting district space versus us needing policy.
well, and my understanding is if we ever did need policy back, we could pull from the WASDA and start from the new.
Yes. And I think it may be a little more complex than just adding a may in there, because there's language about board directs the superintendent to.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, knowing that the model policy will always be available to us, I would say it's better for us not to have extraneous, unneeded policy in our books.
And finally, I do want to clarify that just because we don't have a policy doesn't mean that it will prevent us from doing something. So.
What are the
Patton, would I be correct in assuming that it would not interrupt your ability to educate our students if we were to just eliminate this policy? Great.
what are the steps to remove a policy from our policy manual?
We just vote on removing it.
I have a question. As someone who's going to have a kiddo that's near this age, what would it look like for the district to offer this again? Is there an element of expense on liability? Is it finding the staff to cover it?
Both those things in the vehicles, because the fleet of 1998 Tauruses, we just got rid of all of them. So we don't have the driver's ed vehicles anymore to teach. So it would take a significant investment if we were going to support that with an automobile. Because typically driver's ed's car have right-hand brakes for the drivers and all of those things. So yeah, it would take a major investment.
So when you say numbers are down, what would the numbers have to be to quantify, like making that investment?
That would be a superintendent and executive director of finance level decision at the time that it became necessary, I would say.
And just to add to, when we previously had it here, it was all funded by tuition. It was not, the money was not given by district to provide traffic safety. It was actually the cost of enrolling your student into traffic safety that paid our teachers the extra money to do it.
Yeah. And to just generally, regardless of how many students we have, simply offering a class and having, no matter how many years we have it, the tuition will not cover the cost of the cars. So to invest in the cars to offer this class would be a significant investment to make that happen. And right now we have to prioritize where we're investing our funds, especially not knowing what's going to come down with the federal funding allocations next year. So I would prefer that we invest it in our core instructional practices right now. And I don't know that numbers, I just want to say, I don't think enrollment in and of itself would be the defining factor, because that's not going to be a one-to-one revenue versus expense. This is going to be a significant expense. Cars are just not cheap. And then
Fair.
these specialized cars are not cheap.
And anecdotally, I can just share that as a parent of young drivers, my students had great experiences at some of our local driving schools, one in Oak Harbor, one in Everett. In the latter case, there was an online learning component so that she only had to leave the island occasionally.
The Oak Harbor program also offers specialized programming for students with disabilities that I've had some people I know who have used, which allows them for additional drive time, one-to-one coaching support. They get additional testing opportunities, and they ensure that those accommodations are provided during the driver's test, which is far beyond a typical driver's ed experience that I'm aware of. I've been really pleased with the supports they provide.
Nice. Could we just maybe get the Fire District 3 car that they turn into a convertible? Could we use that?
I want to keep us on the topic of this policy review and recommend that we kind of limit the discussion to this topic.
Thank you. Yeah, because that decision is not a board level decision. Yeah. So is there anything else on this, or we will be putting it on the agenda next meeting to remove from our policies? Second to last one, policy 3332, electronic communication devices, last looked at in 2004. A little bit has changed with electronic communication devices.
Yeah, what were the kids
Yeah.
doing with their Blackberries back then?
Yeah, it
Pagers are
is.
in there.
Paging devices in there. So with this one, we really want to turn to the expertise of the people who are doing the work to make sure to see what we need to change, if we need to change things, or if it's suitable as is. Yeah. So I will open it up for commentary and discussion on that. I'd love to hear from our professional educators, their viewpoint on this.
As I think you're in the know that we've changed our cell phone policy the past few years, like much of the state and much of the country. And it's been successful, not perfect, but it's been working for us. The big thing too is, you know, our students need to sign off for what's appropriate and not appropriate tech use. You know, there's the understanding that teachers without permission, if it cannot be recorded by a cell phone, camera, or speech, unless there are some accommodations for 504s, things like that, where students do need to use that, and staff will always agree to that. So there really hasn't been any major issues. Now, I'd like to ban cell phones outside of school, but that's a whole different story.
So John, if I'm looking at policy 3245, which is the students and telecommunication devices policy, I feel like this is one that was last revised even 2011, but is much more reflective of technology devices that we see today. And I recognize this wouldn't just be your decision, but do you feel like we could do what we did with the driver's ed policy and do away with policy 3332 and focus on updating our current Or is there something that would be captured in 3332 that is not captured in 3245?
No, again, I skimmed this, so I would agree with you, Andrea, on that. I don't think it does need to be updated.
Sorry, I'm just looking at 3245 now. So what was that?
Joanne Welliver,
Yeah.
Elementary School. I was just gonna say that's super wordy. The one on the previous screen. I agree with Patton. I would love to not have cell phones outside the school. I also have a junior at the high school, and I would love to see a policy where they have almost like a phone locker and they have to turn it in. They have a device where they put the phone in the said locker, could be a little pouch, and they have to unlock it at the end of the day in order to get their phone back. And I think having that encourages students to have face-to-face conversations instead of being on their phone. I do agree that there are some students that need their phone for educational purposes and or social stimuli may be too much. But my children, when they were younger, went to Horizon Elementary before we moved here, and they had a policy where every student had to turn their cell phone into the office, and I saw it, and nobody argued it. They put it in a basket at that time because that was early, I don't even know, 2012, and they checked it out at the end of the day, and that was it. No questions asked, because if you need to get a hold of your student, it is called the office. So that's my opinion.
To address this point, I think it's appropriate that each building has an age appropriate implementation of this policy, and I'm glad we do. It's not a I don't feel it's a board decision to make these educational and operational calls on should it be a pocket or a locker or keep it in your backpack. Like that should be left to professional educators. However, this policy, whichever one of these two, we should amend to reference the fact that every building should have its own age-appropriate procedure. Yeah, and right, and it should be in procedure so that it's up to professional educators to determine what's best and age-appropriate.
So Dr. Clifford, could we recommend that you take these two policies to the leadership team and bringing back recommendations on one or both, or language that would then allow individual administrators to inform a procedure, a district procedure?
What I would prefer is that, yes, we can do that. And I would, another alternative would be for us to update this. And since this 13332 is here today, just switch out paging devices with electronic devices, because that's the only word in here that I think is really obsolete. The rest is kind of relatively appropriate. And we can add, instead of procedure, another option we can say is school practice. So that each school can have their own practice and we don't have to create a procedure that is specific to either the entire K-12 or by level.
Okay.
And then each school has their handbooks and practice. It's little procedure.
Yeah.
At the school.
Yeah. Okay.
If that works for the board, if you'd prefer to have an official procedure, and then we can come back with the other one. I looked at it briefly. It's not up for today, but if we want to, we can remove pagers and just again use the electronic devices and use the same word that we have in here.
Okay.
Does WASDA have a current model policy? Have they updated theirs at all in the last few years?
No.
I did have a question as a community member, and I know I'm probably going to be misquoted on this, so I'll try to be very clear. I agree with you. I'd love to remove cell phones 100% from the world, but they are helpful. With that said, most of school shootings, the way people find out about them is by students with devices. So I'm just wondering how we safeguard those concerns from parents saying if there's an emergency. I mean, teachers are usually in a mode of protection. They're not necessarily in a mode to reach out for help per se. They're locking the doors, they're, closing blinds, and typically students are the ones that are grabbing their phones to alert other people. So I'm just wondering if we were to say, okay, this is a school-wide policy for individual schools to kind of differentiate between appropriate level. How are we going to show that we're also safeguarding those concerns? And then also from what I have heard, and this is just secondhand, I understand some teachers do follow the put your phones away and others are a little bit more lenient. So I'm just kind of wondering, do we do it per educator, per grade, or leave that up for individual? Because I guess some parents are confused because their kid comes home and says, no, that's not the case. And other ones are like, Mom, I don't have my phone all classroom. I mean, there's a lot of flex that leaves parents kind of confused and out of the loop.
So each of our levels, the elementary, middle school, and high school, have slightly different variations on how they're applying this. I think the middle school is, I don't want to speak to this in my, I don't know if it's 4 months, but 4 months here. But I think that it's a little bit more consistent across to classes. And then at the high school, it's practiced in some classes, but I prefer you to speak to that.
Yeah, middle school basically is you need to put it away, passing lunch, before and after school when you're actually in the building. High school is different. We do have some teachers during their class will have their students take out their phones to use it as a part of the curriculum. But they can have it during passing, before and after school, and during lunch.
And I would just add that the building practices would be a great place to delineate where's their teacher choice, where's their building level expectations. And then that can be worked into the way in which educators are brought into the program.
To your earlier point, Gwendy, I would not want to lay down a policy that would restrict our administrators and staff from providing the appropriate safety measures for our students. So I want to be very careful of how tight we get with these so we can give them the leeway to take the appropriate actions to safeguard our students.
And I would also just hope that we can eliminate redundancy between the two policies that have been under discussion today. So Dr. Clifford, I guess I would look to you to say which one provides the best starting point for what we should edit. And maybe we look at retiring the other.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't have to take action on either of them next meeting. We can say, we looked at it and this one is the one we want to edit, but we want to do some more integration first and push it off to November. We have that flexibility to do that. So I would suggest that we leave it to the administration to determine which is the better policy for what they want to do. And then we can workshop it with their input from there.
Yeah, what I will do is we will create an updated draft policy, and then I would hope that we will just move forward with it. And if there's minor tweaks, we can do minor tweaks, but if we're gonna do that work, we've had a lot of discussion here, and then we can move back. We can come back, take that in, update that, and then come back.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if we have a workshop on November.
We have both. Both November and December are
It's double.
it's a double
Perfect.
meeting. So
perfect.
we can't discuss and then take action in the same meeting, but there isn't a deadline on any of these. So there's
Perfect.
no rush.
Okay.
We can discuss your recommendations in November and enact them in December. That's not a problem.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Can I just say something?
Mhm.
Again, Joanne, elementary school. I'm just curious if there would be an opportunity for the board to per se do a field trip to see how other districts that do enforce these policies with the cell phone quote unquote lockers, to see how they are handled and how the students' educational production is handled throughout the day and how their social emotional has increased or decreased. I just was wondering if that could be an option before you ratify any kind of, I don't know what these are called.
Policy.
policies.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm a visual learner, so I need to see it before I do it.
Mhm.
And I'm just curious because we have never touched base on this before, really, as far as like really honing in on that, because I think that's a lot of where the bullying and negativity comes from, because it's very easy online to say things and not be held accountable. So a field trip to get visual.
So we actually have a fantastic opportunity in November with the Washington State School Directors Association annual conference, where we can actually talk to school directors from across the state and talk about how their schools handle it. And a lot of superintendents are there too, so we can get the people actually in the work. So that can at least give us a place to go from there, even if we can't get direct reports or
Yeah.
visual.
And like I said, like a field trip would be awesome, just to literally see how it is run.
I would also just add that that's not necessarily the board's role. I think like if that's learning that the administrators want to go to, or I feel like that's something that needs to be done at a school level, because they're the ones who are going to be the ones, and as well as you, right, implementing it. And I would rather invest the resources and the time in the people who are going to need to implement this policy, informing us about what would work best for our community, rather than us informing them what will work best in their buildings.
Well, and that gets again to we say what, they figure out how. So we don't want to tell them, you will use cell phone lockers, because we're not experts on that. Yeah.
And I would also say that on a subject like this, our policy can direct the decision makers on this to understand promising practices, to make safe decisions, to safeguard student well-being. You know, we can basically ask that the how address the key points of, you know, safety and quality educational experience. But I don't think it's board work to say the how.
So a couple of things. This was not originally part of our goals, district goals, and we have quite a bit. We have 3 big goals, but in each of those goals, we have at least 2 pillars, and then within those pillars, at least multiple subcategories. So I have over 9, maybe 12 goals. And action items, and technology is not one of them right now. So I am happy to update this policy. I can share with you that and work with the team to update the policy. I have actually been in districts and have observed and seen the pouches, and observed and seen I call them the shoe racks. And both do work. And there are some pros and cons to both. And to going back to, if you want to, in an emergency, have students be able to have access to their phones, the shoe pockets work better in the classroom. So I, at this point, would ask that the board not, if you want to change my goals, we'd have to figure out one of the goals that we are going to pull back if you want us to do more investigative work and do extra steps around this. If I'm updating the policy, I'm happy to, we work with a team to just tweak it. We originally were bringing it up because it's older and it has outdated language. And I also want to acknowledge that it is a really important topic. And what I'm really proud of is the fact that when I came here visiting before I officially started and during my transition, that we were doing things that some other districts are not. And there are some districts that are full no cell phone use. So we're also not that district. But I do want to say that we were ahead of the game and still are compared to some other districts. So we have some promising practices, and we continue and will continue to monitor and work with that. And I know that the state is doing some work around cell phone policies.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to raise this to the level of a goal. I think that's for later on if we decide we need to do that. I think it's just looking at which of these 2 policies is the best fit and making the minor tweaks that best suit enforcement of the goals and procedures within the student handbooks at each of the schools.
So I did have a question, Gwendy from Freeland. When I use the term safeguard, I'm not talking in policy around how kids can access it in emergency. For example, I work in a behavioral health facility, and we have what is our alert buttons. So it's a way of alerting people there's emergency, because I like the idea of removing the cell phones from kiddos during classroom. But you also have to have a way that you're saying, I'm safeguarding it if there were to be emergency, because not all students can run to the pocket and grab their phone at the same time when someone starts coming at them. So I don't know if there's a conversation around, hey, what are other districts doing so they still have the capacity to quickly alert when there is an emergency without having to grab their cell phones, without having the teacher take the time to do much, but maybe just push a button, just an alert button.
Well, I know that our administrators have procedures in place to handle emergencies like that and to provide alerts. And I don't want to get into that at a board level because that is a building level decision and building level procedures. And I want to leave that to the professionals.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do want to ask Representative Dotmeyer if you have any view on this as a student, if there's anything that would particularly impact you or if you have any input to give on this.
I definitely think having the by school represented in the policy is useful because in the policy that I'm looking at right now, it's more representative of the middle school policy and less so of the high school policy. But then parts are more high school and less middle school. And so I think having the delineation between high school and middle school would be very useful.
Thank you.
I want to make sure we're not making extra work for our staff by saying take these two policies away and make them less redundant, tell us which one to kill. Another alternative would be to charge us as board members with coming prepared at the next meeting with a recommendation around new language and which one to get rid of because they're somewhat redundant.
If we do that, I would suggest not the next meeting, but November's meeting.
Sure. And I guess I just wonder if maybe what we could direct our superintendent to do instead of come back with a better version of one of these policies might be come back with a recommendation about which of these policies to get rid of. And then the board come with recommendations for how we think, and the superintendent come with recommendations for how we think the surviving policy can be improved. I don't know if that would make your job easier, but I don't want to send you away with homework.
I really appreciate that. And I like your suggestion.
Thank you. So yeah, might I just ask that you just shoot an email to the board saying my staff and I prefer number blank, blank, blank. And then each of us can privately reflect on how we would keep the surviving policy and make it stronger.
We'll review it at our next leadership meeting. We'll give you that recommendation. And if there are any suggestions for some pieces to consider, we'll also add that.
Great. That sounds really good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Dr. Clifford, I also want to thank you for a couple of minutes ago reminding the board that effort is not in alignment with the district's goals and priorities. That was a really helpful reminder.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The last item on our policy review is 6213, reimbursement of travel expenses. I expect that Mr. Field will have the most input on this one. This was, again, I guess this was a 2011 one also. I thought it was further back than that, but is there anything that we need to change or do we need this or?
We use the federal reimbursement rates and then capture original receipts. So none of the changes seem material to that current process.
Excellent. Then we'll just not look at it again and put a review date on unless there's anything else.
Is there anything about the existence of this policy that conflicts with your current practices?
The biggest piece is the mileage rate, and we pull that down every January when it becomes available.
Sure. Okay. So long as this doesn't conflict with that. Great.
This
It
aligns.
speaks to it. Yes, great.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the last of the policies. For the next 2 months, we will not have many of these because they're one meeting a month months. So we'll look at the technology issue, but otherwise it'll be just focusing on the business of the day. After that, we'll start pulling up another couple of these old ones now and then. And we will try to be very thoughtful of the added advisory time that adds for the administration. Thank you. Anything else on this topic? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Good night. Thank you.